What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And you guys know that, Pirate Rumble is definitely one of my favorite game modes in the game. I think it is a lot of fun, and whenever they bring out new statistical improvements for these characters in Rumble, it really gets me excited because it does potentially shake up the potential meta that we could be moving into. And the team builds for Pirate Rumble can change depending on what kind of updates certain characters actually receive. So in this video, we're going to break down everything here because there is actually a lot to go through here. Now, this is first up, which is going to be the Super Tandem Ace character. So they're updating his Rumble ability, so his passive effect, where now they're going to give him critical percent up level 3 for shooters. To be honest, that's probably one of the worst things they could do because crit up doesn't actually affect special damage, it only affects normal attack damage. So to be honest, not really what shooters really needed. I will say though that Ace is still a good unit due to the fact that he does provide attack and defensive increase. I think that's actually still very, very good. But critical percent up just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really not what shooters needed. I mean, they probably should have given CT special up. That would have been amazing if they had that. But this is not a great update for the character. Moving on, they've updated the GP burst requirements, and you'll see this a lot in this post. They've updated a lot of the GP focused leaders. So you have this guy right here where before you would need to receive damage 33 times, and now they've updated it to 25 times. So we can actually go over to his stats here. For his Grand Party Burst skill, so as we said there, it says after you receive damage 25 times, and the effect is still the same of giving a critical percent up level 10 for 30 seconds for your entire team, and then all enemies are hit with 4 times attacker's damage. So being able to activate that special more often is obviously a nice update. But again, I just don't really think these updates are going to make people use this character more often in content in terms of Pirate Rumble related events. So yeah, not the best updates they could have done for Ace. He is still a very good character though overall in Pirate Rumble. Next is going to be the final Tap Luffy that came out during Global's anniversary in February this year. So they're updating his special ability where they're going to start doing 3 hits of 3000 fixed damage. I actually think this Luffy's still pretty good. My defensive team that I normally use in Rumble is a fighter team with this Luffy on it. So I'm actually pretty happy that they're doing this. They're also buffing his Rumble ability where now he's going to do everything he still does, which is HP, speed, and defense level 5 for fighters, but now driven enemies get level 3 speed down. Not a great debuff, and probably not what this character needed, but hey, debuffing driven is always nice, we love to see that, not too bad. The burst requirement is now very similar to what we've seen with characters such as the Shanks and Buggy character. After you deal 55,000 damage, where now the burst is going to also change, where the effect is still the same. Target 3 low attack teammates for special CT reduction. Actually, that is also changed. So now 3 low attack teammates for special CT 50% reduction. Now it's going to be a 100% reduction, and targets 3 high attack enemies for attack down level 10. But now free spirit and driven enemies are given halve attack for 20 seconds. This just enables it so that if you're up against free spirit or driven teams and this guy's your GP leader, then it allows you to survive a little bit more often, halving their attack to ensure that they're not doing as much damage to you. I think it's not bad. You could actually build a really good fighter team with this Luffy. That burst skill is okay. 55,000 damage is not a terrible requirement for the GP burst at all. His leader skill is focusing on boosting fighters, Psy, and strength characters, so you can build decent teams out of that. I think it's not bad. It's not a bad update for this Luffy. He may actually see a little bit more usage. And they're also going to update the Sabo from Global's anniversary. So the special ability appears to be the same, except for the fact that they're reducing the CT of the special by 3 CT. Probably not the best update, honestly. Like, the special itself is not really that good. Your quick teammates level 6 attack, level 6 speed, and then 3 of your teammates get haste. Like, it's just not a great special, honestly. The Rumble ability is going to be the same, aside from the fact that you're getting level 5 defense to quick as well. I suppose that's pretty good defensively speaking, but his special's not really worth using, honestly. Like, it's just not very good to use in Rumble. So, yeah, unfortunately, this Sabo really didn't get much of a buff at all. Kind of disappointed with this one. And now we get to Nico Robin, the New Year's Robin. I actually have used this character a decent amount when I'm using normal quick teams in Pirate Rumble, not so much in Grand Party, not the best in Grand Party, but the Rumble special of this character is going to be updated, where it all looks pretty much the same, except for the fact that it has an effect where it is a 30% reduction. So normally before it was a 20% HP reduction to the enemies in a large range, now it's 30%, and then it also targets one driven enemy for 6 times attack. That is brutal. That one driven character that gets hit with this special is just getting absolutely decimated. That's a big amount of damage. And then the burst for this character is going from 9 power attacks required down to 5. So you can see there's a bit of a theming here with these bursts, making them a little bit easier to activate. The burst effect itself, it is going to now target driven and powerhouse characters for defense down, and then targets 3 enemies for 5 times attack 2 times. That's actually a pretty good amount of damage as well. So yeah, look, Robin's got a nice update, but again, like, she is a weird quick unit, and trying to fit her on a team is kind of difficult. Like, I don't think she's going to be a unit that you can really fit easily on a quick team. She is cerebral free spirit, so I guess you could kind of fit her on those cerebral quick focus teams that are coming out, you know, with obviously Legend of Ankov and stuff like that. The GP burst, or the GP leader skill of this character gives buffs to cerebral free spirit and quick, so if you are focusing that quick cerebral team, she's going to be a very good leader for those characters. And, you know, she's okay. I don't think she's going to be a unit you see very often, but it's not a bad buff, I guess. Moving on, we've got more buffs for Grand Party. We've got the Final Tap Law, which now you only have to hit 5 critical strikes to launch his GP burst, which is a bit more respectable. The burst effect is also getting updated, where it's now going to target all of your deck's allies for 2 times counter stance, where before it would only target 3 of your deck's allies, and then it will also target all enemies for 3 times his attack as damage. So again, like, okay, I suppose, you know, having to hit 5 critical strikes to get that GP burst, but it's unfortunate that the counter stance does only work for your deck's allies, so I don't think this is really going to see a lot of play. The other 2 Final Tap characters that debuted alongside Law, with Kid and Luffy, are also receiving GP burst requirement updates. So Kid is an interesting one, because Kid is a character that some people have been testing and trying to use as a GP leader, and the fact that his you know, requirement for his burst is going down to 6 guards now is actually pretty cool. The effect itself is interesting. You target 3 enemies that ignores defense for 2.2 times damage, and then your strength allies get level 5 defense. So that's actually a very good burst skill. And in terms of his GP leader skill, giving buffs to driven, dex, and strength, you can actually build good stuff with this unit. So this is going to be a character that you're going to have to be very cautious of, just due to the fact that that GP burst is very, very difficult to get around. And Luffy, his burst skill, you only need to have 5 enemies defeated instead of 7. So again, a little bit easier to launch this skill now. And the skill itself targets your team for level 7 attack, and then targets all enemies for 4.5 times damage, and then 3 teammates with high attack, 100% chance of haste. This is not a terrible GP burst, you know, it's a very stock standard kind of burst skill, but I think Kid is the one there that really got the W. We're getting even more GP related buffs, and Yamato is an interesting one here, where you only have to heal 10 times instead of 15. And healing is interesting in Pirate Rumble, because, you know, with the behavior pattern here, if a character heals in their behavior pattern, I believe that actually does count towards charging the GP burst skill. So I do think that this is a skill now that you actually may see in content. So it targets 3 enemies for 5 times damage, and then targets quick and side teammates for 4 times recovery heal. That's interesting, and Yamato is a character that still sees a lot of play in today's day and age, so Yamato as a leader could potentially see play. And then we've got Oden with his GP burst only requiring 6 critical strikes instead of 10. That's a pretty big buff. And in terms of his GP stuff here, you target all enemies for 3,500 fixed damage, and then target your slashes for level 10 attack increase. Not a great GP burst, honestly. There are definitely better slasher focus units you could use as your GP leader. So really, Oden just kind of needs a GP burst buff, honestly, because that burst is pretty terrible. Even more GP buffs. We're going to have Straw Hat Crew, where now you only have to hit 6 power attacks. Straw Hat Crew are still a character that I see quite a lot as GP leaders, because they're very easy to build for, giving buffs to 3 colors and free spirit. It's very respectable. As for the effect itself, you get a level 6 attack buff buff to your entire team, and then an 80% chance of haste for strength, dex, and quick characters. It's a pretty bad burst skill, but the thing is like the Straw Hats, you could use them on a lot of different teams, so it's not the end of the world, but this is just not a great character in Rumble. Interestingly enough, you see that Super Tandem Kaido and Luffy and Yamato actually have the same GP burst requirement, so that goes down to only requiring 5 power attacks now, so you actually will see these effects a little bit more often now. Kaido is not a very good character in Rumble, so it's interesting that, you know, he gets the buff anyway, but this burst skill, target 2 enemies with high HP for 6,000 fixed damage, and then Powerhouse get an attack buff, level 10 for 30 seconds. I mean, it's kind of whatever, to be honest. Like, this is just not really that good, because he does give buffs to Int, Powerhouse, and Strength, but it means you have to run this character on a team, and this character is not very good in Rumble. But Luffy Yamato, on the other hand, is actually a very good character in Rumble, and I'm sure many of you guys out there have come into contact with this character as an opponent. It's a very, very good character. So this character's GP burst is a little bit of a refresher. It gives all enemies 4 times attacker's damage twice, and then it also targets your teammates with HP 50% or less for level 8 attack and level 8 defense. This is definitely a much better burst skill. You know, 4 times attack to all enemies twice is very strong. And especially if you're using this with like Luffy Yamato, and like this could actually work very, very well. So yeah, I think this is pretty solid, honestly. It's a very, very good burst skill, and they give buffs to Striker, Free Spirit, so they're pretty good. I think that is a very nice change for the burst skill Luffy Yamato for sure. Even more GP buffs. We're gonna have the Yamato and Ace character, so now you have to blow away 4 enemies instead of 6 this time for their burst skill. Little bit of a refresher for them. They target 2 enemies for 2,500 fixed twice. That's actually pretty decent. And then targets the team for level 5 CT speed up for 30 seconds. Not a terrible burst skill, but does require you to run really good characters to really abuse the CT increase. And they give buffs to Strength, Dex, and Striker. So honestly, not awful. This could see some play. But still, having to blow away characters is kind of annoying, honestly, because, you know, for what they do in their kit, they only give the blow away buffs to strikers, so building a full striker team is probably what you want to do. But if you're able to launch that GP burst and you have very good team to abuse the special CT increase, this could actually be very good. So the next one on the list is this Film Red Snake Man, and this update's interesting. Goes from 5 teammates defeated down to 3. Very easy to launch this GP burst skill. So let's see what this one actually does as a bit of a refresher. So it targets 1 teammate with high defense for level 15 attack, and then he also gives a 3 times attack counter and activates Provoke and gives them 1,000 interval healing for 30 seconds. Now remember, this is only 1 teammate with high defense, so I don't really think this is that good, because remember, specials just bypass Provoke entirely. So this is not really that good unless if like you're going down to the wire and you're like on the cusp of losing, and it's like, you know, it's like 2 characters versus 2, like a 3v3, or like there's really not a lot of characters left. Launching this burst skill allows you to provoke, and while everyone's trying to charge their specials, you're constantly countering them. This will be very good in that situation, but it's a little niche for my liking, and running this Luffy on a team is not that good in Rumble. So next we have KDAD, and their burst is now only have to deal damage 25 times. That's actually pretty decent, very easy to do. And their skill, once again, you target 1 enemy with high defense that does ignore defense damage of 2.5 damage. That's good. And then if Oden is on the team, you target your team for 50% CT reduction. That's actually not an awful burst, to be honest. It's actually pretty good, and slashers can definitely abuse KDAD. You've got the versus Yamato here, which is kind of interesting. So the burst for this character, where you now have to defeat 7 enemies instead of 10, and we'll see what Yamato actually does. I actually don't remember what she does with her GP burst skill. So after you kill 7 enemies, the effect targets 3 high defense enemies for 4,500 fixed, and then your quick enemies get half stats for 20 seconds. Again, very specific against what you're coming up against, which I don't like. So I'm not a big fan of versus Yamato in PvP. You know, specials and burst skills that are tailored against certain enemies are just not really that good. And then we've got the Tandem Whitebeard and Jack, who actually both have the same burst requirement of now only needing 5 power attacks. So So let's go ahead and have a look at Whitebeard and see what his burst skill is now. So it targets 3 teammates with high HP for defense, level 5, 3 times attack counter for 30 seconds, and when you have less than 50 seconds, all enemies get level 7 attack down and level 7 speed. That's a terrible burst. You're never going to use that. Just absolutely garbage. Then we move on to Jack with the same requirement. So his GP burst will target all enemies for 4k fixed damage, and then Slasher Powerhouse enemies get 30% CT delay. That's definitely better, but probably still not going to be used all that much, because it means you have to run Jack on a team, and Jack is not very good in Pirate Rumble, unfortunately. But then below that, you've got Killer, and once again, only requiring 25 instances of damage against the opponent, which is very easy to proc. And as for what this character does, targets all enemies for 5 times attacker's damage, which is incredible, and CT speed up level 5 for 15 seconds. That's pretty good. I actually really dig this GP burst, and Killer's definitely a little bit better to use in Rumble. You know, he's focusing on boosting Int, Driven, and Striker. I think Killer's actually a really nice update. So we're getting a GP burst update for TND Big Mom. This is an interesting one. So with her burst skill, it's now going to target quick and Psy enemies for 80% chance of half stats. Still really annoying because it's only 80% chance, so there's going to be that off chance, you know, you're up against, you know, like Oden, for example, or Yamato, you don't half stats that character, and then you just get mollywopped. So look, it's cool, it's whatever. How do you actually, what's the requirement for her GP burst? Receive damage 25 times, so it's very easy to get. Yeah, I just wish it was 100% chance instead of 80%, because there's going to be the off chance it's just not going to work. But it's still an interesting update either way. And then we've got this guy. So we've got the 8.5 anniversary Zoro, which actually recently received a normal buff in PvP with his like normal like special and rumble ability and stuff. So now with his GP burst skill, he's going to target quick enemies for defense down 5, and then also give driven enemies defense down level 5, and then targets 3 enemies for leader base 5 times attack. So that is definitely better, but still there's like a lot of other GP bursts you would rather use than this guy. And then we have Nami as the final character here with her GP burst, allowing you to do a random 1000 to 6000 damage to all enemies randomly 3 separate times. So, I mean, you could get lucky and then just immediately do, like, you know, upwards of 18,000 damage to all characters, which would be absolutely absurd. But if you actually take a look at it, right, so if this is what it is at face value, between 1k and 6k, you take the middle of that, so it should be around, like, what, 3,500 fixed damage, let's say, and then if you're doing that to all enemies 3 separate times, then that should equate to upwards of over 10,000 damage to all characters. Now, if that's the case, this is going to be insane, but it is interesting because hypothetically, if you hit one character and let's say it does like 1,200 fixed damage, will all 3 of those hits be 1,200 damage, or is each hit a different roll? Because that actually will make a pretty big difference as to how good this effect is. But then again, you have the same effect of, oh, that means you need to use Nami on a team. And as we know, Nami's one of the like worst legends to use in Rumble. Like she's just not that good. So it's an interesting update. And I kind of like what they're doing though. They're trying to give some buffs to these other GP skills to kind of give us something else to do. Because at the moment, it's kind of like Uta, Roger, Shanks, Buggy, or Bust at this point. So I like that they're giving us some different alternatives for using in Grand Party, which is kind of cool. I do still think the other characters are still better, but these other skills are definitely nice changes for sure. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Which of these buffs are your favorite? I would love to hear your opinions on all of that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.